Hey everyone, Renee Jane here, and I wanted to talk about a very important topic today, telling stories, and I want to talk about something about trauma. I had something incredibly different planned for today, but the fact that I woke up to the same news that many of you did, uh, more news of death and dying and pain. So I've decided to tweak things a little bit. But just for some of you who may not know me, again, my name is Renee Jane, and I help people align their feelings, their food, and their thoughts. And I started out in this world of nutrition, and I kind of did in my business, but I want to briefly share a quick story with you so you can understand where I'm coming from. And I also want to talk about you sharing your stories and how important it is that you share your stories right now. And more importantly, how those stories can be a huge catalyst to unhealed trauma and to healing the trauma. Let me rephrase that. Because when we don't share our stories, we keep in some of the trauma. And the reality is that we're exposed to so much right now that we weren't necessarily exposed to a decade ago. And I'm grateful for social media. It's the reason we're engaging right this very moment. I'm really grateful that we have access at, a tweet or a click of a button to see what's happening in the world. And it allows us so many more advantages to help people and impact people and crowd and fundraise and all kinds of things. But what it also does is it triggers trauma within so many of us, and it really impacts us on a emotional level in a way that might not be very healthy. So what I want to do is I want to give all of us permission to shut things off. And it doesn't mean that you're bad or you're not paying attention, but to give yourself breaks. And I also want to give you permission to jump on a Facebook Live or to make a video or to reach out to friends, create community meetings, whatever it is that you need to do to share stories and help other people. So to give you, and hello to Christian and Matt and Jennifer, good to see you guys. And if you have questions, you can jot them below. But I want to talk about a couple things. The first one is that 17 years ago, I was a young, 19-year-old, almost 20, and I hired a life coach. I was running a small business at the time, and I was in college. And that was really powerful for me. I had a lot of trauma from my life and relationships and upbringing, family. We all have it, by the way. No one's immune to that. And so the life coaching was helping me. But the thing is that at the time, no one ever asked me how I was eating. No one ever asked me if I was smoking cigarettes at the time, which I was, and if I was consuming lots and lots of sugar and soda and fast food and all those things. So what ended up happening is I did all this work on the mind and affirmations and mental healing, but I really wasn't focusing on my physical body and on my food and on my health. So that finally, about 7 or so years later, I finally figured out the food piece. And then I started taking a lot of that life coaching stuff, the mental things, the affirmations, the changing your beliefs, and I started doing that along with the food, and it was really powerful. But then I started to realize that, I'm having some issues within relationships. I'm having issues expressing myself, and there was depression and anxiety and isolation happening. And I really began to see that I wasn't feeling my emotions. And what I want to do is I want to invite every single one of you listening to this today to just recognize that our culture has really shamed feelings and emotions, and it's different for everybody. But I'm going to generalize for the sake of this and for the sake of time. But men or boys are often told not to feel their feelings. They're called sissy and many other words, right? And don't feel, just stop crying, and they're shut down. And women, on the other hand, again, I'm generalizing here because it can be different for everybody, but they're often told that they're too emotional and that, they're whining too much, or if they get angry, their anger is squashed down and they're told that they can't do that, and everything in between. And what I want to do is I want to invite everybody listening today is to really start to understand that emotions are our native language, and there's nothing to fear about emotions. There's nothing to be shameful or guilty about of feeling emotions. In fact, I believe that our emotions and our feelings are our biggest superpower. And the way I teach this, and I have a course called Love Your Life Academy. And the reason I'm sharing that is that there's a very specific way to help people get in touch with our emotions. Because, I'm not suggesting that we feel these emotions and then we use them as a catalyst for scary things. There's a lot of things that are scary happening in the world right now. But what I am suggesting is that we feel our emotions fully. And there's a lot of different kinds of emotions. There's anger, there's apathy, there's guilt, there's fear, there's jealousy, there's envy. I'm reading a list over here, by the way, because, there's a lot. There's sadness, there's grief, depression, there's joy, right? Happiness is part of that. And your emotions, not only are they your native language, but they're meant to be felt and they're meant to be lived all the way down. So let me give you a couple examples. I have noticed in the last 7 years of coaching hundreds and probably thousands of people now, that there's a lot more depression and anxiety and a lot more isolation with people than I've ever seen before. And I've also felt depressed and isolated, and I've also felt lonely in my life, and I completely relate to those things. But what I want to do is I want to start to invite people into seeing that there are a lot of consequences to that. For example, there's a mental and emotional and physical consequences to this depression and isolation, and mood disorders can start to pop up. Physically, hormones start to change. And we have a lot of stress-induced hormones that start to pop up, and inflammation and cognitive decline in our brains. And so what I want to do today to summarize, I know this is a lot, and I know that there's a lot of feeling going on right now. And every single day, there's something new that's happening in the world that is heart-wrenching. This morning, I had an intention to do a different kind of Facebook Live and to share with our community. And when I saw what happened in Las Vegas, and I just, it really impacts me. And I know it impacts so many of you also. And I had so many emotions and so many feelings. And sometimes the instinct is to want to go keep reading, or to numb it out, or to stay on social media. And what I really needed to do was I needed to remind myself that I needed some space to just sit there and breathe and feel it all. And I got emotional and I cried a little bit. And, some people might think that's silly. I don't really care. I just want you to know that your emotions are your superpower, and they are meant to be felt. And your stories, you all have so many stories. I have zillions of stories. Zillions is a new word in my book. And what that means basically is there's so many stories to be told. And I know that a lot of those stories could really make an impact on somebody else. And I want to challenge you and challenge me that we need to keep telling our stories, because what that does is it gives other people permission to tell theirs. And it gives other people permission to share their feelings and their vulnerable emotions. And, and I'm not just talking about sharing sad emotions or depressed emotions. I'm talking about all of them. And one of the things that we forget is that when we don't give ourselves permission to feel all of the emotions, so not just the happy, right? Because Facebook tends to be like, look at the beautiful thing I did today, right? Or social media, not just Facebook, but it doesn't often share, look at the crappy thing that happened to me today. And I'm not saying we need to share it all, but what I am saying is that you need to feel it all. Because if you don't feel the hard stuff, then you numb out your ability to feel the good stuff. And I want you to have the range. There's so many people in my community who talk about being conscious. And what I really want you to see about what this being conscious means, I believe it's a stand for being somebody who can grow their emotional intelligence. It means that we can step forward and say, hey, I feel this today, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And also, the last thing I want to share with you is that I think it's one of the reasons that we have so much trauma in our world right now is because collectively, as a whole, we have a lot of people who don't know how to feel their emotions and their feelings. We were never taught, and this is not a time to blame your parents or your grandparents. Like our parents and our grandparents were just doing the best that they knew how to do, right? So this is a time to take responsibility for our own actions, our own humanness, and part of being a human is a lot of feeling, and it doesn't make you wrong or it doesn't make you bad, but one person making a change can impact another person and another person and another person. And for those of you who are listening and you have communities and you have people to share it with, you sharing your stories can impact hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe for some of you millions in your communities. And that is how we're going to make shifts in the world. And I don't see it happening tomorrow, but I do believe that with steps, we can really heal the trauma in our world by feeling our feelings and by eliminating the loneliness and the isolation and the separation that we have. I know this is pretty deep, and if you want more information, you can go to loveyourlife.academy. I have a free workshop. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, but it's totally worth it from what I hear from my clients. Loveyourlife.academy. It's a free workshop, and you can get a ton more details on this there. And if you want to reach out, feel free to reach out. Much love to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's so good to see everybody. Hi, Deb. Hey, Brian. Hey, Jennifer. Hi, Jim. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.